Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Ajam Nirvikalpam Nirakaramekam Niranandam Anandam Advaita Purnam Param Nirgunam Nirvishesham Niriham Parabrahma Rupam Ganesham Bhajema. Team Param Vedanta extends a warm welcome to the 121st session of Bhagavad Gita, verse by verse. In today's session, we continue with explanation of verses 13 to 18 of chapter 16, Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, interspersed with valuable insights by our revered teacher, Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir. As always, we'll have the chanting of the day's verses at the end of the presentations. We begin today's session with a recap of the previous session. Over to you, Sri Venkatesh Prasad sir.
Thank you, Vasmati. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We heard from Dr. Meenal in our last session the purpose of introducing this chapter, Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga. She said, character determines the way of life, and the way of life will determine the goal of life. We further learned that our scriptures make a threefold classification of human character into Vesha Pradhana, Asuri Pradhana, and Gnana Pradhana. Krishna compares and treats them as wealth, since goals can be accomplished, goals can be bought with this wealth. Krishna uses the term Sampat for these characters, hence Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga. After the initial introduction of Daivi Sampat and Asuri Sampat in the first 6 verses, Lord Krishna devotes 15 verses from 7 to 21 to describe Asuri Sampat. Let us now recollect those enlisted in verses 7 to 12, which we studied in detail last week. Verse 7 in the next slide says, Na viduhu asuraha, pravrittincha nivrittincha, na shaucham, na acharaha, na satyam. Human beings by nature are materialistic in nature by birth. At some point of time, this should change, and the spiritual value system as prescribed by prescriptures should replace the materialistic one. This transforms the person from Prakrita Purusha to Samskrita Purusha and gives him Dharma Dharma Viveka. Asuras are those who do not undergo this transformation and remain Prakrita Purushas. And therefore, Krishna says, these Asuri people do not know what is to be done. Similarly, what is to be avoided. They have no religious purity, nor religious practices, discipline like getting up early, performing Daiva Yajna, etc., and no truthfulness. Let's go to verse number 8, where Krishna defines them in our next slide. Here it is Asatyam, Apratishtham, Anishwaram. They are totally irreligious people. They do not believe in anything connected with religion or spirituality, which is based on the Vedic scriptures. First, they do not believe in the Vedas. Satyam means Veda Pramana. Asatyam means that they do not believe in Veda Pramana. They do not believe in Dharma. Pratishtha means Dharma. They are utterly Nastika people. They do not believe in existence of God nor his role in creation. Then, how are we created? By our parents. Because of the male-female union, Aparaha means male, Paraha means female. This is caused by Kama or desire for children. We are born. Verse 9 describes them as, in the next slide, Nashtatmanaha, Alpabuddhayaha, Ahitaha. Holding such a view, these indiscriminate people are lost spiritually and taking to most cruel actions. They become enemies of the world and become a cause for destruction of world. Next slide, sir. Verse 10. Here, Krishna calls them Dambha, Mana, Madanvita, Ashuchiprataha. Taking to insatiable desires, they are full of pretensions, vanity, and arrogance. Holding wrong views due to delusion, they act with impure resolve for the destruction of the world. Verse 11 says, they are Kamopabhoga Parama, Yetavat iti Nishchitaha. The fundamental motto of Vedanta is Sarvam Paravasham Dukkham. Dependence on external factors is sorrow. Sarvam Atmavasham Sukham. Self-dependence is joy. But these materialistic people depend more and more only on external factors for happiness and security. given to a deep and lifelong anxiety, worries, tension, and holding enjoyment of sense objects as the highest and ultimate goal, they are convinced that life is only this much alone. The problem is they convert others also into this belief, as this is very attractive and doesn't require any sort of religious, spiritual discipline. Finally, we'll go to verse number 12, which charges these people as Kama Krodha Parayanaha, Yihante Kama Bhoga Ratham, Anyayena Artha Sanchayan. Vedic society always valued renunciation. Buddha was valued not because he was a king, but because he renounced everything. Value is for na karmana, na prajaya dhanena, tyage naike amritatva manashuhu. Whereas a materialistic society unfortunately will value possession and prizes only these rich people. A society itself can mislead people. This will make people go behind materialistic possessions. Bound by the strings of hundreds of expectations and given to desire and anger, they work overtime to hoard wealth by unrighteous, devious means for the enjoyment of sense objects by grabbing others' wealth, either by force or by cheating. How do you explain Ishavasyamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat to such rakshasi asuri persons? Krishna's list continues. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Venkatesh Prasad, for a very crisp summary of the verses we studied in the last class. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We continue our study of the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, titled Daivi and Asuri Sampat. And as we look at all the description of the Asuri Sampat, there is a tendency to see those Asuric people. As long as we sit in judgment of those Asuric people, we get some knowledge, but it may not transform us. One way to look at the Asuri tendency is also there in me. And therefore, why has Sri Krishna interspersed all these at the end of the Bhagavad Gita? You will know clearly the climax of the Bhagavad Gita was in the 15th chapter, where Sri Krishna says, Iti. Iti is always a concluding term. That I have given you the greatest secret, O Arjuna. But suddenly Krishna has a doubt. And what is the doubt? That he is giving us something of such great value. Are we a eligible recipient? Do I have the qualifications to take this learning? Swamiji says, and that is why the whole of the Charama Shatkam, in the 13th chapter, in the 15th chapter, 16th chapter, 17th chapter, there is repeatedly Sri Krishna bringing about values, because unless there is values in our life, Brahma Vidya is not going to be more than academic knowledge. It is not going to make a practical difference. And if Parama Purushartha is our vision, it is not going to work. Now, we will use this opportunity that we have to work on values as part of my Jnana Yogyata and look back at what are those values that have brought me and how strong are my values. That means if I have to get eligibility for Jnana Yoga, I should have a certain amount of the basic fundamental qualifications, what our Tattva Bodha calls as Sadhana Chatustaya Sampanna. The first of them is called Viveka. Let us see how strong is our Viveka. Now, how do we define Viveka? Viveka means discrimination, to have a mind that discriminates. Discriminates between what? These are two technical terms. That one term is called Sat, Asat, Viveka. Sat, normally we have that mantra Asatoma Sadgamaya. How do we understand from our pre-Vedantic learning? Asat means from that which is unreal. Oh Lord, please take me to the real. But when we come to Vedanta, this Asat is more of a Vyavaharik terminology. There is a deeper meaning in Paramarthika. Paramarthika means from the highest level of truth. The word Sat means that which is there all the time. Asat means that which comes and goes. The definition given in Tattva Bodha is that which is there in all three periods of time is Sat. That which is there in one of these periods, but not in all three periods of time. Let us look once again in our own lives. My body, mind, my family, my possessions, my profession, and everything that I value is there when I am awake. What happens when I'm asleep? Suddenly, all these things that I value, my body, my mind, my family, my profession, my possessions, all these things have disappeared. So, but there is something that comes and something that is there all the time. That which is there all the time, that which is aware of my waking state, aware of my dreams, that which knows that I have slept well. If we look back into our lives, from the time that I have been very young, from my school days, so much has changed, but one thing has never changed. That witness consciousness through which I'm able to see this whole world, that has never changed. That we call as Sat. Everything else is Asat. So going by a new definition, we should understand. So Sat Asat Viveka is a distinction between that which appears to be true. That means my body appears to be true, my mind appears to be true, the world around me appears to be true. Now, through this Vedantic wisdom, I should have a clear understanding that I will now focus on the real truth, which is there in all three periods of time, and give less importance to that which is there only during waking state, just like when we are playing a game where there is a certain currency during that game. I know this is fake currency, but useful for that game. So too, that is how I give importance to the world. Otherwise, I do not give too much importance to anything that comes and goes, and that comes from my body, mind, or through the identification with my body. Once this understanding is very clear, then the next is only a byproduct, vairagyam or dispassion. Dispassion means anything that I can see and experience, that is my body, mind, and the world around me, I now know it is of a lower order of reality. A lower order of reality, now the truth, how much importance do I give to Sat Asat Viveka? The proof is Vairagya. Now, when a person, this morning or every day, we empty our trash, and we know what is that we trash, we know something that is of really no value. When we discard something into our trash bin, do we announce to our family or to the social media that I have renounced anything? I don't have to renounce or announce what I have renounced, because I know it is trash. The more I know this world is not that valuable, then I realize that when I renounce something, I don't have to announce about it, because I know that it is only a Vyavaharika Satya, it is not a Paramarthika Satya. And now, because of Viveka, Vairagya is a byproduct. Now, perhaps one of the most important qualifications that keeps us in the path of Brahma Vidya is that vision that my Guru, and through the Shastras, I have so much of Shraddha in my Guru and my Shastras that through my own efforts, through the grace of the Lord and through Shastra Kripa, I will be able to attain to Paramapurushartha. My goal is very clear. And once this desire is very strong, once I want this something, you will always see that in Vyavahar also. Whenever you want something very badly, you are ready to give whatever qualifications are required to make that happen. And that is called mumukshutvam. Now, for Viveka, for Vairagya, or for mumukshutvam, what is the sadhana that we need to do? Swamiji is very clear. It is karma yoga. Karma we do in our families and wherever we work. If each of my action is karma yoga, that means Ishvara Arpana Bhava, Prasada Bhava, I do Panchamaha Yajna, over a period of time, all these qualifications become stronger. Then there is one very important fourth qualification, which is called Shama Adi Shakta Sampatti. The key word there is Shama. Shama is mind control. So let that be the key. Shama Adi Shakta Sampatti is a whole set of 6 disciplines. And if you look at Shama, which is mastery of the mind, Dhamma, mastery of the sense organs, Uparama, that means now I'm looking at the truth which is there within me. I don't give too much importance to the world outside me. I'm ready to let go. Uparama is very close to Vairagya. I also know that if I want something, I have to be mentally very strong. You will see all these factors are all mind factors. That means Shama, Dhamma, Uparama, Titiksha all work on the mind. Shraddha is again a deep trust in my Guru and in my Shastras. And finally, it is Samadhana. That means whatever I am doing it 100%. I am focused. Now, what is that sadhana that helps me to get all these qualifications? That sadhana is upasana. Upasana is a manasika vyapara in the form of manasa parayanam, manasa japa, or manasa puja. All these forms of mental activity that we do every day is that which brings us that mental discipline, that I am able to have full control on my mind. My mind is a useful instrument to help me to focus on what I really want in my life. And these are the qualifications. Once I have all these qualifications, Swamiji has said, there is one more. I'm repeating that, and that is values. Now, these slides are only a repetition. Karma Yoga is possible if Karma Yoga will help me to get Viveka, Vairagya, and Mumukshutvam. Upasana Yoga is the sadhana that helps me to get the mind control. Shama Adi Shakta Sampatti. The key word there is Shama. So all that we need to do on the mind. That means the more greater mind mastery is through various techniques of Upasana. Through Karma Yoga, I will be able to work on Viveka, Vairagya, and Mumukshutvam. In the 13th chapter, Swamiji gives 20, Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna gives 20 values. In the 14th chapter, we don't have much of a discussion on values. In the 15th chapter, you have about 6 values. In the 16th chapter and 17th chapter, we have more values that come up. But if you want to summarize all of them, Swamiji in one of his talks said all of them come in the 10 commandments of Hinduism, which come from Ashtanga Yoga, the Yama and the Niyama. Let us quickly go through the Yamas. The Yamas means the don'ts. And what are the don'ts? Ahimsa, no violence in thought, word, and deed. Satyam, truth. That means I will not utter a lie. Asteyam, there is no possession that which I have, which any possession that I illegitimately have is asteyam. Brahmacharya is an appropriate, no inappropriate sexual activity. Aparigraha is lack of hoarding, that or I have as minimum possessions as I require. What are the niyamas? Niyamas are saucham, cleanliness, particularly not only bodily cleanliness, mental cleanliness, speech cleanliness. Santosha is a level of contentment, is a level of acceptance. This moment is as it should be. I'm not fighting with this moment. Tapaha, that means I'm ready to do various levels of austerity. Swadhyaya is what we're doing right now. Regular spiritual study, and Ishvara Pranidhanam, that is my availability to download grace of the Lord. Now, once I have all these qualifications, then I have the Jnana Yogyata. I have the eligibility for spiritual knowledge. And then as Bal Gangadhar Tilak had said, no, it is my birthright. Brahma Vidya or Nishta in Brahma Vidya is going to be my birthright, and I will have it. With this background, we will look at today's classes, a set of verses. And Shamala is the opening speaker. I will request you to speak a little slowly because you have time. I will not come in between each of you. Shamala, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. From the 7th verse of the 16th chapter, Lord Krishna gives a detailed description of the characteristics of an asura, which we heard some of the attributes from the previous verses. Let us know some more in the 13th and 14th verses. We may be wondering, why should we know the asuri qualities? Swami Dayananda says, we should know because it is as important to know the don'ts as the do's, because it is possible to give up these attributes only when they are very clearly known, but more effort is required. The 13th verse goes like this. Idam maya labdham imam prapse manoratham idamasti idamapi me bhavishyati punardhanam. The three verses 13, 14 and 15, they are in inverted commas. Krishna talks about the thought patterns of the materialistic person, asura, which is shown in the next slide. What is a thought pattern? Calculation of the money and property that he possesses, and just go on projecting and daydreaming and thinking of artha and kama and nothing else. And therefore, Krishna says, idam adya maya labdham. Idam means this much wealth. Maya labdham has been earned by me. Adya, today or now. This person always calculates the worth of a person, not in terms of dharma or moksha or jnanam. Therefore, he says, this much I have earned, and next year, how much I will get? Same calculation again and again. Imam manoratham prapse. In future, I will fulfill all the desires which will satisfy my mind. Idam dhanam asti punardhanam bhavishyati. This much I own now. That much more again I will acquire in future. Here, we should note that we are not against money or materials. A balanced attitude towards money is recommended. This verse talked about the materialist attitude, only yearning, craving, acquiring, accumulating, and preserving material wealth. The next stanza in the next slide gives us his attitude towards the world of beings. Asau maya hata shatruhu hanishye cha paranapi ishwarohamaham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. And once there is an inordinate greed, naturally I will see all other people as my competitors. So greed means I see enemies everywhere as obstructing my goals, and therefore Shatrus increase. Krishna has seen all these earlier also. Asau Shatruhu Maya Hataha. So this rival company, my competitor, has been finished. Sometimes it is figurative destruction, sometimes it is even literal destruction. They use gundas to even physically liquidate the people because of inordinate greed. Asau Shatruhu Maya Hataha. And Hanishe cha aparanapi. Others also I shall destroy. Initially, there may be some guilt. After some time, the heart gets benumbed. And once I have destroyed all the competitors, I have got the monopoly in that field. I will be number one. Nobody can come in front of me. Why I am doing this? Next slide, please. Because Aham Ishvaraha. I am the Lord, the King. In fact, the akramam is an open secret because everybody knows that, but nobody can talk about them because we are afraid to talk. In all the cities, such people are there. Therefore, they claim Ishwaraha Aham. And Aham Bhogi. I am the one who will enjoy all the wealth, name, fame, etc. And in next slide, Siddhaha Aham. I am the most successful person, but how he attained success is a big question. Over how many dead bodies? And Aham Balavan. I am the strongest person. Even the law cannot do anything or are in my hands. And Sukhi. And I am the happiest person in the world. Thus, these people dream their future. These are all the thoughts of an Asura. Krishna wants to graphically describe so that we won't go anywhere near that, as even those tendencies come, we'll avoid that. Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The 16th chapter, as you all know, deals with the best human traits as well as the worst demonic traits, that is, Daivi Sampat and Asuri Sampat. We as humans are a combination of these both these traits. The difference between the most successful people in the society and the so-called failures is just this: the knowledge as to how we have been able to leverage our good qualities and marginalize our worst qualities. This is a technique and knowledge which has to be learned and practiced. This is where the Bhagavad Gita stands out when compared to all other knowledge. It is the knowledge of science of life. The verse proper: Adhyo vijanavanasmi konyosti sadrusho maya yakshye dasyami modishye ityajnana vimohitaha. I am rich and of noble birth. Who else is there equal to me? I shall perform yajnas, I shall give charity, and I shall rejoice. Thus, these people are completely deluded by ignorance. The Lord continues to give a dramatic picture of the man of demonic nature. What such a person thinks and acts is spoken of in direct speech in all these verses. In this verse, Sri Krishna describes the mindset of people who derive pride from things such as wealth, noble birth, etc. These demonic possessions are like a plant full of sorrow and possessed of thorns in the form of blemishes. It has to be spoken of only in order that one may know what to reject. Taking it word by word, Aham Adhyaha Asmi. I am the richest person. A person may take pride in owning a good amount of wealth. Such people boast about their expensive houses, cars, etc. They speak about their net worth, their association with wealthy people, and so on. Abhijanavan Asmi is I belong to a noble family, a noble birth. Such people may talk about their ancestry, parampara, aristocratic families, and other lineage. For some, this pride comes from the fact that their ancestors were kings or landowners, and so on. Kaha anyaha asti sadrishaha maya. Such a person is asking, who is there in this world equal to me? Who matches my status? This indicates the height of arrogance in him. Yakshye, next slide please. Yakshye means yagam karishye. I shall perform yagnas, sacrifices, big pujas, etc. Such a person may not believe in God, but just for gaining publicity, he may perform elaborate rituals. Some perform to fulfill their ambitions. Also, some may realize that such ritualistic practices will help them become materially sound. They perform these ceremonies to accrue abundance and fame. Though they rise in social status, their actions remain mean and lowly. They may not hesitate to harm or injure others, to eliminate obstacles in fulfillment of their desires. Dasyami. Next slide, please. I shall give Dasyami is I shall give charity. Again here, a person boasts of giving danam or charity. Sometimes such people imitate those people who are of the divine nature by pretending to be compassionate philanthropists and establish institutions bearing their own names. They operate in such a way that their names should appear in public. This is again the height of hypocrisy. In this context, Swami Paramarthanandaji says, Danam or charity is a wonderful quality which has to be adopted by all, but it has to be given with respect and concern. We had learned in earlier verses about this. Danam, in fact, acts as a cure for a person suffering from lobham. It is also a cure for feelings of insecurity. The act of Danam shows how detached a person is from the materialistic wants. And also, Danam is done to redeem prayaschitta karma. So these benefits derived from Danam shows that it is indeed a divine quality. But for persons with Asuri behavior, they just do it for showing off their wealth. Modishye means I shall rejoice. So their happiness lies in the enjoyment of the above mentioned deceptive qualities. And then Krishna says, Agnana vimohitaha. Thus these people are utterly deluded and confused. They suffer from kartritva and bhoktritva bhavana. Their complete focus is on I am the doer. They forget that many are responsible for their success. Their mentality will be such that all the possessions acquired are because of their own effort, and they believe in might is right, masters of their own destinies, and have no respect in the higher force, that is the divine supreme power. So the demoniacs see themselves as the enjoyers, the manipulators, and the controllers. Krishna says they are so deluded that they completely ignore the reality that one day death will come and indiscriminately abduct them from all their possessions. In the coming verses, the Lord continues to highlight the Asuri character. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Om Gurubhyo Namaha. Jai Gurudev. What do we want from life? Of course, moksha. People who are not aware of this moksha are involved in earning and enjoying the life. The material pursuits are very much normal to human beings, and they are called artha and kama. With these artha and kama purushartha, the next one are moksha and dharma. What is dharma? It is inner refinement and achieved by healthy attitude and ethical values, and also prescribed by 41 rituals. Dharma Purushartha is a Daivi Sampat, and it is invisible wealth, so people do not understand the importance of it. This is the language of chapter 16 in Bhagavad Gita. Next slide, sir. Verse 1 to 3, Lord Krishna talks about Devi Sampat, and 4 to 21 talks about Asuri Sampat. Lord Krishna talks about traits, activities, and behavior and conduct which will adversely affect the human being, and he will go down spiritually. Therefore, we should avoid these traits, as Suri Sampat means Dvesha Pradhana and Raga Pradhana life. Raga is attachment and Dvesha is tamasic behavior. Raga Pradhana person is utterly selfish and harms the society gradually and indirectly, whereas Dvesha Pradhana people harm the society immediately and directly. All this happens because of the delusion. Delusion is what? Finitude. So he does not understand finite plus finite will be finite only. Next slide, sir. So the verse goes like, Aneka chitta vibranta mohajala samavrita prasakta kama bhogeshu patanti narakeshu chau. Next slide, sir. We will go word by word meaning. Aneka chitta vibranta. Next slide, sir. Aneka means not eko. It is many. It is innumerable varieties. And chittam means man. That is mind, thinking pattern. And vibranta, everybody is aware of branta. Vedanta means confused, deluded, and lost in. These are explained in 13, 14, 15 verse. Next slide, sir. In 13 verse, thought pattern is of materialists, earning money, 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 and anybody obstruct that, he will finish them off. And he doesn't feel guilty about it. Verse 14 explains that thinking they are no rival for them. Anybody who is rival, they will finish them off. They are the master. Verse 15, without doing anything, they boast of himself about their ancestors, about their correction. These people are deluded by utter ignorance and confused. Next slide. Moha Jala Samavrit. These are enriched by network, and that is called moha, delusion, or misconception. These misconception being the money and possession, and will give them ultimate goal, which give ultimate security and will give them everything what they want. In fact, money can give many things, but not important things like peace, knowledge, and love. All these things can never be bought. But these people do not understand that, and that is what is called moha. And jal, they get caught in their own jal, net. Next slide, sir. Prasakta kama bhogeshu. This means all type of material resources and scientific advancement will be used for sense pleasure. They think that is the growth of society. Next slide, sir. Prasakta means lost in. Kama bhogeshi means in the enjoyment of the sense pleasure. Kama means sense object. Bhoga means enjoyment of sense object. Kama bhoga means enjoyment of sense object. Prasakta means lost in. So, but body can do spiritual sadhana, but they don't believe. They enjoy all scientific advancement and direct it only to sensory pleasure. Next slide, sir. Narake patanti, people who have no guilt, no regret, or any feeling, they are no Veda, no Dharma Shastra, no Satyavada, no Dharmachara, and this inferior life is called Naraka, which is spiritually backward, and they don't go into Naraka, they fall into Nimta. Ashauchu, Shauchu means Pravitra, Ashauchu means not Pavitra. So these people go into Apavitra Naraka. Hari Om.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Well, the verse goes like this. Atma Sambhavita Stabda Dhanamana Madhanvita Yajante Nama Yajnaiste Dhambhena Vidipurvakam. Well, Swami Paramatmananda initiates a blueprint of an ideal society engaged in leading a dharmic way of life. And this structure begins with primarily the individual practicing internal harmony with effective word, thought, and deed principle. He, along with this, maintains a healthy body, which requires harmony with the internal organs. And this is achievable only through his accomplishments. And chapter 6, verse 17 gives you a beautiful analogy of this. Yuktahara Viharasya, where it teaches you how to go about with the yoga systems and so on. Next in the hierarchy, the individual maintains harmony with the family, enshrining a feel-at-home ambience. This has to be accomplished through compatibility and a well-lubricated interpersonal human relationship. Moving further, the individual is obligated to maintain society harmony, wherein his social conduct is embedded in values of etiquette, humility, and respect towards fellow citizens. This reflects a refined, civilized society. Now, a paradigm shift. Swami Paramatmananda draws our attention to Lord Krishna relating to those who are self-glorifying, Atma Sambhavit, loaded with conceit and stubbornness, stabda, and people filled with pride and arrogance, dhana, mana, mada, anvita, lacking modesty and never bending because of ahankara. Well, generally, these materialistic people, puffed with egos, fall into vicious circles of psychopaths. It becomes obvious for them to promote self-glorification and self-promotion out of pretension, dhambena. They perform rituals for namesake, that is only for namesake, that is nama yajna, to placate the circle of admirers. These self-designated or designed rituals are in fact a sacrilege, since they don't prescribe to Vedic commandments, avidi purvakam, consisting of homa, havana, accompanied by mantra and chanting, and distribution of sattvic food. These are the basic adherences to Vedic scriptures, which is this adorable. I mean, these people don't follow at all. In these occasions, extravagance is prominent, and the hosts exhibit wealth. Apparently, the purohits or priests, what you call, are ignored, and they are secondary in all these rituals, and their job is downsized. Well, in any of these rituals, a major element is Shraddha. Well, Shraddha is totally devoid, totally absent, because the people intoxicated and flaunting wealth, dhambena. Well, the ultimate question is, what is the result of performing such fake rituals? What do they derive? Well, the answer is humility, a prime virtue, is the first victim. And eventually, Ishvara Bhakti is subdued and sublimes eternally. As a result of which, Mahatmas avoid such pretentious people faking rituals. Thus, few chances of correction and getting proper direction to lead a aesthetic life or a proper life diminishes. Well, in this scenario, I think Vibhishana and Ravana, the two juxtaposed brothers, are good examples of contrasting cultures. Vibhishana religiously imbibing every tenet of dharmic way of life, whereas Ravana, proficient in scriptures and a pious character, was soaked in arrogance, meets a futile end. Well, by the grace of Guru and exposure of Bhagavad Gita, we are all blessed. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Shri Krishna continues to describe vividly the qualities of men with demonic nature, that is Asuri Sampat. The verse proper: Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodhan cha samshritaha mamatma paradeheshu pradvishantobhyasuyakaha. Meaning, given to egoism, power, arrogance, desire, and anger, these slanderers hate me, who is present in the body of themselves and others. Next slide, please. Shri Krishna now summarizes the qualities of Asuri Sampat by highlighting the primary ones here. The foremost among them is egotism or ahankaram. In most cases, when people say I, it is their ego speaking. The ego, as we all know, contains the personal identifications with opinions, external appearances, resentments, etc. This ego builds a personality of its own, and under its influence, people identify with thoughts, emotions, which they think as their own. The ego thus identifies with owning everything. There is no such thing as sharing, believing in others, etc. These type of feelings result in unease, restlessness, boredom, anxiety, dissatisfaction, etc. It alienates one from the real self. It creates the biggest untruth in our lives and makes us believe that what we actually are not. For spiritual progress, the ego becomes the biggest hurdle. Shunning ego is a big challenge. We may recall a wonderful teaching which says, instead of trying to be the mountain, be the valley of the universe. Next slide, please. In the epic Mahabharata, ignorance is symbolically represented by Dhritarashtra and egotism by his first son, Duryodhana, who became the main cause for the war. When egotism or the I notion is strong, one tends to impose one's will on others. This is balam or power born out of false status. This intoxicated power causes agony to the victim. This person who is suffering from ahankara and balam disregards others' duties, rules, and norms, loses all sense of right and wrong due to the strength of egotism. This is darpam or arrogance. Their only aim in life is selfish desire, which in turn leads to krodha or anger if the desires are not fulfilled. Their evil tamasic propensities and devilish tendencies, such as hypocrisy, pride, and ostentatious display of charity, etc., are variations of these primary qualities. Krishna says all these qualities begin to dominate one's life totally, samshritaha, and slowly such a person becomes a nastika. Next slide, sir. Shri Krishna then goes on to say, Mama Atma Paradeheshu Pradvishantaha, meaning the demoniac despise the Supreme Lord, abiding within the heart of their own bodies as well as others. Atma Paradeheshu means I am the very life in everyone. Shri Krishna's blessing gives life to the person who is full of asuri behavior also. Even then, such people are intolerant of the Ishvara present in them and also criticize the holy scriptures, which are the gifts from the Lord himself. Here, the word abhyasuyakaha means criticizers, slanderers, or degraders. They engage themselves in self-worship. They transgress the ordinances and injunctions of the Vedic scriptures and insidiously attempt to destroy the fundamental principles of creation established for the benefit of all living entities. When the inner voice of Ishvara, that is the supreme consciousness, which always acts as the guiding principle for all humans, when ignored by such people, their downfall is certain. Proper use of the privilege of free choice by we humans will definitely result in enhancing the purpose of our lives, whereas misuse of the choice of free will granted by the Paramatma will ultimately destroy people with demonic behavior, undoubtedly. According to the divine ordinance of karma, these worst among men attract inauspicious birth and lifestyle. Having learnt about the nuances of tamasic asuri sampat of human behavior and the karmic law of cause and effect governing human actions, let us all strive to concentrate on Daivi Sampat and attain the Param Atma ultimately. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you, Meenakshi, and thanks to all the speakers for covering the allotted verses in an excellent manner with very nice slides. As you see, these very strong words of Asuri Sampat, as explained earlier by Shamala, each of these verses are to be taken in inverted commas. Although it is Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Sri Bhagavan is speaking of how a person with an Asuric Sampat would speak. We will have a chanting of these verses by Sharayu. Sharayu, please.
Hari Om. Idamadya maya labdam imam prapsye manoratham idamasti idamapi me bhavishyati punardhanam asau maya hatah shrutah harnishye chaparanapi ishvarohamaham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi आड्योभिज्जनवानस्मि कोऽन्योऽस्ति सदृशो मया यक्ष्ये दास्यामि मोदिष्य इत्यज्ञानविमोहिताः अनेकचित्तविभ्रान्ताः मोहजालसमावृताः प्रसक्ता कामभोगेषु पतन्ति नरकेषु च आत्मसम्भाविता स्तब्धा धनमानमदान्विताः यजन्ते नाम यज्ञैस्थे दम्भेनाविधिपूर्वकम् अहङ्कारं बलं दर्पं कामं क्रोधं च संश्रिताः मामात्मपरदेहेषु प्रद्विषन्तोऽभ्यसूयकाः. धन्यवादः.
Thank you, Saryu, for the wonderful chanting. Thank you, Dr. Hegde, sir, for strengthening our interest and understanding of Vedanta with your insights. Our sincere thanks to all the speakers. Team Param Vedanta extends a heartfelt thanks to all of you for your active participation. Our next session on Monday, 14th of November, is the 35th session of Disha. Arjuna's 7 questions and Lord Krishna's answers as covered in Bhagavad Gita verses 1 to 4 of chapter 8, Akshara Brahma Yoga, will be discussed. We conclude today's session with the usual prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.